Hi guys, welcome to Rootstem and welcome to this painting tutorial for this Iron Warrior's Obliterator. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. If you do enjoy the content, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. And in today's tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to do this flesh to metal Iron Warrior's Obliterator. It is an airbrush tutorial, but if you don't have an airbrush, I just suggest that you do a lot of the stuff by hand and replace the airbrush technique bit with dry brushing. If you've got sort of, as I've got here, some makeup brushes, although that's not in view, some makeup brushes. Makeup brushes are fantastic when you're trying to do some nice blending. Or if you've got some Artist Opus dry brushes, you can use those guys as well. Although if you don't have any of them, standard dry brushing will do. So today's video is going to show you how to get all of the flesh sorted. We're going to have a look at the metal that we've done as well. And of course there's some little bits of shading on various different parts. I have noticed I've forgotten to paint that tongue, so I'm going to be doing that right now. And of course I'll do a little tiny bit on showing chevrons. If you want to see the burn effect, that is on a different painting tutorial. I'll try and include a link in the description below. Right, so let's get cracking. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to be looking at doing is to kind of base the flesh. Now I've sprayed these with the lead belcher. I've gone over it in some Iron Warrior Silver. Now I'm going to have to go over it again because of course we're going to be using an airbrush to make sure that we can get all this nice little sort of like a pink. But I'm going to want in a little bit of feathering as well, and maybe just a little tiny bit of it, making it look like it's kind of sore at the actual points. So I'm going to start off with Corn Red. I'm kind of just going to use the airbrush. I'm going to be using my Badger Renegade. Is it? Oh no, Chrome. Oh, Renegade Chrome. Yes, it is. And I'm going to be trying to get as thinly as I possibly can into these areas without trying to get too much onto the other parts. And then once that's dried, we're going to hit it with some Cadian Flesh Tone just to try and some nice little thin layers just to try and build up that colour. So we have put some Cadian Flesh Tone into and sort of airbrushed this on. As you can see, it's kind of mixed in with a little bit of the red. You've got kind of like a purple, maybe a sore point. I'm going to now coat that in some Reichland Flesh Lead. So the Reichland I'm going to put all over the flesh, and apologise if I sound like I've got a little tiny bit of a lisp. I've bit my tongue. So we have got the flesh up to this kind of consistency after the ink wash. That's done it some good for me. Now what we're going to do is get the Cadian Flesh Tone again. We're going to get our wet palette. And we are going to kind of blend. Look at my fingers as well, flesh colours. We're going to blend up, just using a couple of sort of smaller brushes. We're just going to blend up and kind of try and get some more detail on this flesh. So I've got my Cadian Flesh Tone, kind of gonna get a little bit on the end, just run a little bit off so that it's not too wet. We are just going to, I'm not going to go all the way in, we're just going to kind of paint something on. Make sure you kind of go in similar directions, so if you're going to go up and down, left to right, that type of thing. I think it's a bit too, that might be a bit too, there we go. It's getting nice and runny. Not too runny so that it doesn't actually cover anything, but I need just a little bit of that see-through sort of pigment going on. Just go around the whole model. kind of feel like we're just feathering it a little bit. And you can see if it's drying, then of course it's going to dry lighter. And just go across, don't go too crazy. And if you think stuff like, if you have a look at this leg here, a little bit more there. We'll try and avoid anything where it's kind of starting to meet the metal. So keeping that lovely looking pink that we've already started to develop. That we'll just make sure that we're getting a nice transition between sort of like the metal armor and the flesh. So on the next stage, we are going to get a little bit more Cadian flesh tone. Yay. I'm going to stick some Kislev flesh in it. We're going to mix it up 50-50. We're going to water it down, and we're going to apply this in just a couple of different layers. So the first layer, of course, just being a little bit more on those kind of highlights. If you need to get off the excess, do so. And then once you've done that, just go in with some pure, again, a very thin, pure Kislev flesh. We're not looking for the whole thing to be covered. We're just looking for sort of like a highlight to the flesh that we've already highlighted a little bit with the Cadian flesh tone. So skin is got some nice highlights to it. It's been done. We've done it quite quickly, especially combinations of airbrush and wet palette. And now we are going to go on to the silver. So I had some the Iron Warriors base color, which is just it just says Iron Warriors. And we've gone over the silver and tried to get it as nice as I possibly can. Now I've only gone over with one coat, and that's on purpose. I've had it a little bit thicker than I normally would like it to be, and I've applied it all to the areas. Now if there's a little tint of red still from the overspray, that's fine, because we're wanting to make it look like these people are merging in with their actual metal selves. Now I've got some Null oil. We're going to do the usual that you always do, the silver, but we're going to put it all over. We're not going to do like a recessed shade. This is going to be painted all over the actual metal, and then give it a couple of hours to dry, and then come back to it for the next stage. So we have the armor on. We've got now the Null oil is now dry. We're going to go in with a dry brush. I've got some Iron Hand Steel. Yes, it's I feel a bit traitorous there. Going Chaos and then using an Imperial naming paint. And I've got just a cheap makeup brush, and we're going to go in for the dry brush on the big panels to start with. Once I've, apologies for wobble, gone in with a bigger one, I'm going in with a Games Workshop small dry brush here, and we're just picking out better details, making sure that we're not getting onto that flesh. Just being as careful as we can. And then once that's done, we're going to get a little bit of the Iron Hands steel. We're going to put it into a wet palette, thin it down a little bit, and then we're going to get into these little areas and just give them kind of like an edge highlight. So I'm going to do some trim now. We've got some Tinny Tin from Game Colour, and what we're going to do is I've used a little bit of my airbrush thinner, because I quite like using, rather than using water, I quite like to use airbrush thinner in my metallics. I find that it doesn't separate as much. You tend to be able to just keeps it nice and runny, comes right off the brush, and you only have to do kind of one coat rather than having to do loads. Which, I know Duncan says 2 coats, but sometimes when you're trying to paint quick, and it's trim, because trim's, let's be fair, trim is really irritating. You just want to get it on and just not come back to it half the time. So get your trim done up, and once you've done your trim, tinny tin secured. And what I've done as well is to add some elements of black. So with this one, I've painted the weapons black. I've painted a greave bear black as well. And this is going to serve for that greave bear, and the fists on this one are going to serve for my chevrons. But before we do that, I'm going to get some Agrax Surfshade gloss. We're just going to use this wash on all of the tinny tin elements. With my silver and my trim and everything else dry, we are now going to paint in some chevrons. So if you are painting a different legion or a different, Heretic Astartes, then do something, do kind of like probably put in your, if you've got some Night Lords, you're going to have to paint in some lightning bolts. But with me being Iron Warriors, I'm going to be painting in some chevrons. So what I like to do, I've got this, I think it's only like 0.5 mil or less, sort of masking tape. And I put it into strips across the arms. Just get a little bit of Avalon Sunset, which is one of my favourite yellows to use. You will need to do a couple of layers of this. It's on the wet palette. And I just block this in as neat as I possibly can. Now I use these as guides because sometimes, depending of course upon if it's a curved surface, it might not be 100% down. So if you are going to use that, do that, sort of go across, and then you won't get any paint accidentally underneath. So block that in. So we've got several layers of Avalon down. I've now got some Uriel yellow on the wet palette. Just thin it down nicely, and we're gonna kind of just block this in, but leaving the edges. So if we blocking. Blocking. If you build this up slowly, you'll just get a nice bit of a highlight on your yellows. So we're getting quite far along now with this particular miniature. I've painted a little bit of red inside that mouth there, and I've actually painted all the bone areas with a couple of layers of Ushabti bone. This is to prep it for the next stage. The next stage is just going to be taking the good old Agrax Surfshade. We're just going to put that onto the bone, onto the red that we've already got there, on the mouth area. And then once that's dry, I'm going to come back and again just do a little bit of a highlight of Ushabti bone. So cover the whole thing with Ushabti bone, come back in for a tiny bit of that highlight. And you can see with my creature, I've also done his toes, so do that as well. So I've done a little bits of bone. We are nearly done with this model here. I am going to be doing a burnt metal effect on there. The little tiny eye type things that we've got dotted around, I'm literally going to do those as eyes. So I'm just going to paint them with some white and paint the pupils. I don't really need to show you guys how to do that. I'm going to do a burnt effect on the edge here using some airbrushes, and then tidying up anything else, including doing possibly some green eyes here. Anything like that. These little tiny bits I've done before in previous videos, so fingers crossed I've remembered. I'll put some links in below and just follow those tutorials to get those effects. And there you have it, an Iron Warrior's Obliterator. All nicely based, well, nicely based, quickly based, and done up with a bit of effort. Some nice little details, and of course that weird flesh to metal look. Right, well, thank you very much for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button if you want to see more. I should have some more tutorials coming soon if you like them. Also, battle reports. I'll try and get some more kill team reports out on the channel. I was away for a little while, which is why there's been a little tiny bit of a hiatus, but we should be getting back on track soon. Well, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.